The following was recorded in front of a live studio audience at the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. This is the United Podcast Network.
The following program is closed captioned for the thinking impaired.
By tomorrow, I will rule the world!
You think he's gone? He's not gone. That's the whole point. He's never gone!
Is this some radical new therapy?
You see?
Well, I must have not been paying attention when you were just talking to me. Do you think that you could repeat the question? And I listen more attentively. There must have been something in all of that nothing that wasn't quite so easy to see.
Do we have to do a show today?
Yes.
And I must have missed something when you were.
We've had a couple.
Honestly, I only came in to see you.
Ah, well, I appreciate it.
Like, if I could have come in to see you and not done a show, I would have preferred that.
I know, I miss you. It's been a couple weeks.
Yeah. Still here.
You are.
Much to the chagrin of those who are actively trying to take me out.
Yeah.
Don't bet against me. Don't bet. People,
I never would.
let me tell you, there are people that I'm very surprised that when they thought I was done, walked away and were like, started betting against me. Like, okay, Duggan's all done now. I was very surprised at who some of those people were. But on the other end, though, I was very surprised at people that I wasn't very close to that, like, stepped up to the plate and they were like, no, you know what, Duggan, we know you've got this. We got your back.
There you go.
So, you know, in tough times, you always find out. Find out who your friends are, find out who your enemies are.
You definitely do.
And you find out who the fucking traitors are who try to play both sides to the middle. Who come in and they're like, oh, Tom, I'm with you. And then they go to the other side and go, hey, I'm with you. And they're like trying to like play both sides. And I think we're also retarded. We don't notice. We have no clue that, like, you know, that they're playing us. But I'm still here. At least for now, anyway. Who knows? The way my health is going, I may be doing this from a hospital bed the next couple of months.
I very much hope not.
Yeah, me too. I'm so hospital out at this point. Can we do a show with you up here? Can you produce the show and be up here at the same time?
We can make it work, yeah.
Could we?
Yeah.
So I want to do a show. I want to interview you. I think you're a really interesting person.
Thank you.
And I want you to come up and like you know, give us like your take on stuff.
I feel pressure now.
Well, because
I don't think I'm that.
Well, the other thing too is you're not from this country,
right?
So you see things from a very different perspective.
Yeah. I mean, I saw things from a unique perspective, even from Australia. So.
Yeah.
But yeah, I can definitely.
I should probably stop the show because the sun's over, huh?
Wait, but it's not really.
Well, that's true. Wait, I feel like radar on MASH. Wait for it.
Wait for it.
There it is.
There it is. But yeah, it's going to be over in a minute. Yeah, you should probably start the show. But yeah, we can have me up there at some point for sure.
Yeah, no, I think that'd be fun.
Good.
Hi, how you guys doing? My name's Tom Duggan with the Paying Attention Podcast. Hi, Top. Two guys smoke shop at the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe. Before we get to any important stuff today, anything big, anything important, we're going to do a couple of big topics today. I've been binging a lot of shows because I haven't been feeling well, so I've been spending a lot of time in bed, and which is why I wasn't here the last couple of weeks. And a couple more trips to the hospital and a whole bunch of other stuff. So I've had a lot of downtime. So I've been reading a lot, which I normally don't do in my regular life because I'm usually too busy to read. But I'm also binging a lot of shows, a lot of like Netflix shows and stuff that like I never used to watch because A, I was always too busy, but B, I never like had Netflix and Pluto and Peacock and all that stuff, and now I do. So I binged at least like 10 different shows in the last couple of months. And I want to talk just for 3 seconds about Yellowstone. Such a good show.
It really is.
Such a good show. But you know what? They canceled it after season 5, and they canceled it because they said it was too expensive. And before I watched it, I had heard all these great things about it, and I thought, why would they cancel a show that everyone loves so much? But by the time I got to season 3, I totally understood why it got canceled. Because first of all, when I'm watching something, I hate montages. To me, a montage in a TV show or a movie is a total waste of my time. If you skip through the montage, you push fast forward, you don't see one screen of that montage, you have not lost one iota of intellect in the plot of the show, right? All it is just filler. It's cheap filler. So I started on season 3 was very boring, and I almost stopped watching it, but I started fast forwarding through all of the mountain scenes, the horses running through the field scenes, the cow scenes, the rodeo scenes, and the montages. And by the time I got to the end of season 3, I realized that there was like 7 minutes of content in each show, and the rest of it was them at the county fair, looking up at the sky. I started thinking of all the other shows that I've watched, because I did like a whole thing online a couple of days ago about all the shows that I've been watching, and I realized that that's actually what's wrong with most shows today. Most shows today, the producers are trying to find a cheap way to fill time rather than spend that 4 minutes that you're going to use for a montage or cows running through a field for no friggin' reason at all, just totally wasting our time. How about fill that with dialogue and content? Fill that with controversy and action. Fill it with something that gives us an idea of the flavor of the people that we're in the characters that we're interested in watching. Anyway, so I just wanted to talk about that. I'm kind of in a contest with a friend of mine now, where we're both trying to out binge each other on shows, because he's also he's actually in the hospital like on a regular basis. Like he's of every 30 days in a month, he's home like 3. And he comes home for 2 or 3 days, and then they have to send him back because he's got a very serious condition. So we're kind of kindred spirits now. We're talking to each other all the time, and we're swapping notes, and we're trying to watch the same shows at the same time, so that we can kind of like, swap notes and go, I like this character, I don't like that character. So I'm starting to get into. So if you have a suggestion for a show that, because I'm going to come in at some point, and I'm going to do a whole show doing like TV reviews.
Okay.
I've noticed in the 20 years that we've had the Valley Patriot, we have a TV talk columnist named Billy Cushing. Billy and I went to St. Patrick's Grammar School together, and I literally haven't seen him since then, but he emails me his column every month, and I brought him on board very early in the Valley Patriot, I think in the first or second year. And whenever I post his column reviewing whatever TV show he's doing for that month, it's always the highest rated show. It's the highest hit count of any story that I post for that week. So if I post his story like on a Tuesday, by Friday, I can look and see the hit count of all the stories that I posted on the Valley Patriot website, and his will always be either at the top or near the top. It'll be 1 or 2 usually. And people like entertainment. People like to read about entertainment. People really get into that stuff. So I think that as we go forward through the summer, we're going to do a couple of feel-good shows. We'll do a couple more restaurant reviews. We're going to do a couple of shows. And maybe we'll even get Billy to come on. I hadn't even thought of that. But maybe we'll ask Billy to like zoom in or something, or come into the studio. Bill Cushing's our TV talk columnist. Go to valleypatriot.com. By the way, go to the Valley Patriot website. Don't wait for me to post stuff on Facebook. Go to the Valley Patriot website, valleypatriot.com. We have done something that most newspapers never do. Even the Eagle Tribune. You go to the Eagle Tribune, you have to pay for their content. The Valley Patriot celebrated our 20th anniversary this past March. If you go to valleypatriot.com, there's a search bar in the upper right-hand corner. You can search for any term, and any story that we've published in the last 20 years will come up. So it's a good archive. If you're doing research on real estate on Essex Street in Lawrence, on nonprofits in Haverhill, or some political thing that happened 5 or 6 years ago, one of the things that I get a lot of calls on at the office is I get calls a lot from people who call and say, you wrote a story about my uncle 10 years ago. He's a veteran, because we honor a veteran on the front page of every paper. And I'll get a call from someone and say, hey, my grandfather passed away a few months ago, and you wrote a story about him honoring his service and sacrifice, and I'd love to frame it for my mom, or I'd like to frame it for my brothers for Christmas or whatever. So, can you, and I'll say, listen, go to valleypatriot.com, go to the search bar, type his name, let me know what date we published it. And I will go to the warehouse and I will get you a physical paper and I'll mail it to you and let you know. So anyways, you should do, I know I'm just killing time, right? I'm just babbling. I haven't been here for 2 weeks, so I'm trying to catch up.
That's okay.
I'm trying to catch up to everything.
I'll fix that in a minute.
That would be wonderful if you could do that. I started a new medication, and I'm just drinking so much water. It's got me so parched. All right, so what else do we want to talk about? So the Valley Patriot is out. The June edition came out this week, and I just want to touch real quickly on our lead story. A lot of controversy by the editors. The editorial board, we had quite the discussion, quite the debate as to what the lead story should be, which almost never happens, by the way. Usually, like, I'll throw an idea out and say, hey, why don't we do... State Auditor DeZoglio did an audit on welfare fraud, and she found $10 million in welfare fraud. Let's do that. And usually everybody just goes, okay, and we move on. This week, we had quite the controversial discussion because there's a new study out in Massachusetts about food insecurity. I have to do it like Chris Eldridge. Food insecurity. The new catchphrase, the new political bullcrap term that people are using for hunger. It's actually a study on hunger in Massachusetts, and they've broken it down by county, and they've broken it down by age, and they've broken it down by economics, but they've broken it down by age and by county and by region. And so it's a very interesting study. Obviously, it's done by the Greater Boston Food Bank. And so, of course, the Greater Boston Food Bank's conclusion is the government should spend more money on food, and by the way, you should give it to us so we can provide the food, right? So it's a bogus study as far as what the conclusions are that they're trying to get, what the goal is of the study. However, there's a lot of numbers in here that are very interesting, because if you compare them to the food insecurity of 10 years ago, it is quite staggeringly high. In Essex County, which is the county that we live in, right south of the border here of Salem, New Hampshire, the food insecurity is 36%. That means 36% of the population of Essex County, from Lynn all the way to Methuen, to the Salem, New Hampshire border, is 36%. That means 1 in 3 families can't afford to buy their own food.
Yep.
That's outrageous. That's outrageous. And you know why it's outrageous? It's outrageous because the Massachusetts legislature just spent another $1.5 billion or more on food for illegal aliens who just came over the border like yesterday, and housing for illegal aliens who just came over the border like yesterday. And our legislature is spending our tax money on people who just got here, who granted have needs. I'm not saying don't feed them. They're here. They shouldn't be here. We should send them home. But since they're here, I'm okay with feeding them because I don't want anyone to go hungry, anybody. Like when TMF goes out, when we go to Bay State Road and we go to all the tent cities, we don't ask people, are you an American citizen, before we feed them. If someone's hungry, feed them, right? But I guess my objection is that 36% number in Essex County wouldn't be 36% if we weren't importing more poor people who are hungry. See what I'm saying? So again, I'm not saying don't feed them. Please don't send me emails saying how heartless I am that I don't want to feed people. I'm more than happy to feed anyone who's hungry, no matter where they came from, no matter when they got here. I just don't think the legislature should be spending their priority money on illegal aliens before, I don't know, homeless veterans who serve the country. American citizens who pay taxes their whole life and now suddenly find themselves on the streets. I just think they should take priority. That's all I'm trying to say. And I think most thinking people who are not members of the Democrat Party cult would probably agree with me on that. What is also interesting is that if you look at the map that we published on the front page of the Valley Patriot this month, Hampden County and Bristol County is 48%.
Wow.
That means almost half of the people who live in Bristol County and Hampden County can't afford to pay for their own food. While the American government and the state reps in Massachusetts and the governor of Massachusetts are spending billions of dollars on people who don't belong here. That's outrageous. That's outrageous if you ask me. So I want to talk about a couple of other things, but I just think you're doing something really cool when it comes to feeding people, and I think you should tell people at home what that is.
Thank you. Yeah, so coincidentally, the topic, food insecurity, is a big issue.
No, you have to say it like Chris Eldridge. You have to say food insecurity.
I'll let you do that.
All right.
All right. So for those of you that don't know, I host a music bingo night every Thursday night here at Sadie's Bar and Grill in Salem, New Hampshire. And each month we choose a different local nonprofit that we help support with our proceeds that we make. So this month, for the entire June, we're in June, oh my goodness, we are supporting a program called End 68 Hours of Hunger. And what this is, it's a public nonprofit. It's an effort to confront the approximately 68 hours of hunger that some school children experience between the free lunch they receive at school on Friday afternoon and the free breakfast they receive at school Monday morning. So there's about 68 hours there where some kids don't get to eat again. So the weekend program they've established in New Hampshire in like 2011, it gives the kids food to take home over the weekend so that they do have something to eat. So it's a fantastic program. So everyone
I would almost prefer them to like go to the school and eat it at the school, because I would be afraid that sending them home with the food, that someone else in the family is going to eat it, that kid's still going to be hungry.
Well, we can only do what we can do.
Listen, I agree.
Who's got to bring the kids back to school on the weekends? What kid wants to go back to school on the weekends?
Right.
So
I hear
we
you.
do what we can.
I'm just always looking for a more perfect solution.
So if you want to help out with that and have a good, fun time and maybe win some prizes, then come on down to Sadie's Bar and Grill here in Salem, New Hampshire. Every Thursday night, it starts at 6:30. Get there early, though. The game starts at 6:30. So get in there at about 6 o'clock. It costs $10 to play, and those proceeds, as I said, outside of paying the prizes, everything else, every dollar else raised on those games.
I would say I'm coming, but my stalkers will show up. So if I say I'm coming, so I can't say that I'm coming, but I might show up. We'll see what happens.
All right, well, that's
but I think it's an incredible thing that you do. By the way,
thank you.
I wish that my audience paid a little bit more attention to your efforts. I know that when we put out a call for TMF, they always respond right away. When we put out a call for House of Mercy or Clear Path, they always respond right away. And I want to try and incorporate what you're doing at Sadie's every week into our fan base, for lack of a better word. The people who follow us religiously and trust me to say this is a good thing to contribute to. I want them to start helping you out, because what you're doing is really good work.
We would love it. We would love the support, especially this time of year. It gets the crowds get a little thinner. The weather's nicer. People are out. So it takes a dip. We have been very fortunate enough up until now. Once we really got this going, we've been doing it for almost a year, or a little over a year now, Sadie's. See, look, we could have had me on the show and interviewed me today.
Well, see? But they can't see how hot you are when you do it this way, right?
I know. It's a surprise. See? Teaser for next time when I'm on the show. What was I saying? Yeah, we've been doing it for almost a year now. When the crowds are good, we've been able to hand over checks from $1,000 onwards, in a month that we've raised for these charities.
Right.
So it does take a dip. So, we definitely would love some extra support and some extra people in the room to play. It's such a good fun time too.
Yeah.
$10, good food.
Music bingo is fun anyway.
Sing along.
It's funny because the Janas took me to a music bingo about 5 years ago. Jana Di Natale and Jana's Andy Pesci. It's Jana! And they literally had to drag me to this event. I didn't want to go because I couldn't imagine how could this be fun. And they're explaining it to me, and it just didn't seem like because first of all, I hate people to begin with. And when I say I hate people, I don't mean I hate everyone. It just means like I hate crowds. I hate the public. I don't like dealing with people I don't know. I don't like dealing with the public. So I was like, I don't really want to go. And they literally came to my office and wouldn't leave unless I agreed to go with them. So I went with them. We went over to Salvatore's, and I think it was for the Methuen Boosters Club, for the Methuen scholarships. And I had I was so surprised at how much fun I had that we actually did our own music bingo for the Bash last year, didn't we?
You did.
All right, so we have one more thing before we get into the heavy topics. Wow, the show's almost over.
I was going to say,
this is good. The Lawrence Exchange Club. It's Lawrence and the Andovers. I don't know why they call it that, but whatever. It's the Lawrence Exchange Club with the Andovers, just Andover and North Andover, doing what they do every year. It's called the Field of Honor, and what they do is they put up these massive flags like these. Never hold me to a measurement because my measurement is just way off. Like I have no measurement skills. But it's like a 6-foot flag, and they put rows and rows and rows of them on the common in North Andover, and you can sponsor a flag. So before he passed away, Frank Can was sponsoring a flag every year in the name of my dad, and he would at the end of the event would bring me the flag. So I actually have a flag in my office with my dad's name on it that Frank Can paid for. And he passed away shortly after that. So it's kind of like my homage to not only my dad, but to Frank Can, who honored my dad. And they're doing it again. So if you want, I think it's like $30 to sponsor a flag and $50 if you want to sponsor a flag, and then you get to keep it afterwards. And you can put the name of, like, if your grandfather was a veteran, maybe served in World War II, maybe served in Korea, Vietnam. If you maybe just have a patriotic family member that you want to honor. Maybe there's an unsung hero somewhere in the community that you think, hasn't been honored and should be, and you want to, for 30 or 50 bucks, and that person's name goes on the flag, on the common, and it's going to be until, let me see. So if you go to valleypatriot.com, we've actually got a story up there, and there's a link that you can order the flag online. And Bob Westcott, whose daughter was here a couple of weeks ago with Katie Cook, granddaughter, I'm sorry. Bob Westcott is running this from the Lawrence Exchange Club. And I think this runs until June. Yeah, you would have thought I would have had that ready, right? But I don't. So it ends in June 15th. So May 25th to June 15th. So it's going on right now. So the money that they raise from this, the reason I bring this up, obviously we love Bob Westcott. We love the Exchange Club. They're great people. The money that you donate goes where it's supposed to, or I wouldn't be working with them. This year, they're giving that money to 3 different organizations, and they're all Valley Patriot organizations. They purposely picked 3 Valley Patriot organizations, ones that we work with directly. Clear Path for Veterans New England that help homeless veterans. House of Mercy, which is like a daycare center for the homeless in Lawrence. It's a place where they can go, they can take a shower, they can do their laundry, they can get a haircut. Keeps them off the streets, they're not breaking into cars, right? Keeps them busy. And they provide lunch, they give them backpacks, all kinds of stuff. And TMF, which feeds the homeless not just on Wednesday nights at the Buckley Transportation Center, but also goes out 3 or 4 other nights a week to the different tent cities in Lawrence and brings food and blankets and other amenities to the homeless. So please, please, please go to valleypatriot.com, click on the story for Field of Honor, and there's a link right at the top of that story that will bring you to the Exchange Club's website where you can sponsor a flag. You can sponsor a flag and let them keep it, or you can sponsor a flag for like $20 more, and they will actually let you take it home. They'll deliver it to your house, and they'll let you take it home. Also, tomorrow, the Rotary Club of Methuen is going to be making a $1,000 donation to TMF. So we want to thank the Rotary Club of Methuen. All right, so that's the end of the show. I have no time for any actual stories. Thanks for coming, folks. Good night. I just wanted to come in and just chit-chat because I haven't been here for a while, I guess. So there's 2 major stories that I really kind of want to talk about. And I guess I'm not going to have time to really get into too much in depth of the stories because we only have about 13 minutes left in the show. First, though, I want to say, big kerfuffle in Lawrence. People in Lawrence, some people in Lawrence, the communists in Lawrence, the left-wing lunatic communists in Lawrence. You know, the whole Wendy Luzon crowd, Jonathan Guzman, I love him to death, but he's still a commie. All the left-wingers, all the people who run around talking about diversity and equity and inclusion, all of those people, they're all out of their minds that a dark-skinned Dominican from Lawrence named Ralph Carrero has been picked to be the superintendent of schools. I think it was last week that they elected him. Now, here's what's funny about this story. Well, actually, there's a couple of things funny about the story. First is that Ralph Carrero served on the Lawrence School Committee back in 1996 with me. I sat with Ralph Carrero on the Lawrence School Board. Not a positive experience with me and Ralph. Ralph, I've always respected. He's a very smart guy. He did a couple things as a member of the school committee that to me would automatically just qualify him to be superintendent anywhere. But that was like 30-something years ago, right? People change, people get wiser, people get smarter. So I wouldn't have held it against him if I was sitting on the search committee for superintendent, especially when I looked at the other applicants. The other applicants were so left-wing, communist, woke, crazy left-wing lunatics that it became very obvious when you just peruse their resumes that Ralph was really the only qualified person to have that job. And when I say qualified, I don't mean he checked all the academic boxes. I mean qualified in the fact that he's from Lawrence. He's the darkest skinned guy there, and in academia, that's important. Skin color is important. It shouldn't be, but it is, right? And what's funny is that the left-wing lunatics were protesting the darkest skinned guy that was up for the job. That's what's crazy. That the Wendy Luzons of the world, who cry about race and skin color on a regular basis, were adamant against Ralph Carrero, and they said themselves out loud, and I always give them credit for being honest when you're going to be honest about something this dumb, that they didn't want him to get it because he was an ally of the mayor. So why would that matter? Why should it matter that the guy is an ally of the mayor if, A, he's the darkest skinned guy? That automatically qualifies you for everything in today's Democrat Party. These are all Democrats. They're Democrats fighting now. It's Democrat on Democrat violence is what this was. And it was hilarious. I thought it was just absolutely hilarious. Watching them fight over who was more woke was just, I literally sat back and just watched this whole thing. I didn't comment on almost anything other than to say, a year ago I came on this show and told you, long before Cynthia Paris even resigned, that Cynthia Paris would be resigning and Ralph Carrero would be replacing her. Now, how did I know that? Am I psychic? No. Am I a genius? Absolutely not. It's not because I'm a genius, and it's not because I'm psychic. It's because if you go to political events on a regular basis, you can see what's about to happen by virtue of who shows up at events. So, for example, a year ago, I always go to political events all the time anyway, but a year ago I started to go to a couple of people's events that I normally didn't go to. People that weren't really friendly with me, I wasn't really friendly with them, but we had mutual friends that kept inviting me, so I started going. And all of a sudden, this guy, Carlos Matos, started showing up. Carlos Matos was a District B city councilor in Lawrence 30 years ago. At least 30 years ago. I'm going to say like 2004, maybe 2002, so that's 20 years ago. My number's off, all right. And I'm trying to go quick. So I started showing up at these events, and this is Carlos Matos, and I'm like, wow, this is a guy I literally haven't seen in like 20 years. Why is he all of a sudden around here? Like, he ran for city council, he won, he served on the council, he ran for mayor, he lost, and then he disappeared. Like, poof, he vaporized in the night. We haven't seen him in 20 years. Nobody's even thought about the guy in 20 years. And all of a sudden, he's at every event that I go to. So I leaned over to somebody who was a friend of mine one day, and I said, hey, do you know Carlos? He said, yeah. I said, what job is he angling for? What's he going to be running for? Like, what is he looking for? Because we haven't seen the guy in almost 20 years, and all of a sudden there he is. Well, last year I went to a bunch of events. Oh, by the way, Carlos Matos ended up getting hired by the mayor to be the new community development director for the city of Lawrence, right? So I bring this up, why? Because a year ago when I came in and said Ralph Carrero is going to be the next superintendent of schools, it was because I was going to fundraisers for Pavel Payano. And all of a sudden, there's Ralph Carrero. Now, Ralph Carrero and I sat on the school committee back in 1996. Ralph Carrero has vaporized after 1996. He's been in the community, but he never went to any political events. He's not making headlines. He's not doing anything. He's not angling for a job. And all of a sudden, there he was. There he was at Pavel's fundraisers. There he was when they were holding signs. And then the night that Pavel got elected to state senate, the victory party was at Mr. Tuck's, the old Mr. Tuck's location, and I walked in, and who's the very first person I see? There's Ralph Carrero. And so I walked over to him and I said, Mr. Superintendent, I want to be the first to shake your hand. And he looked at me as befuddled as he could be and said, Tom, what are you talking about? And I said, listen, you can't kid a kidder. I've been doing this for as long as you have. I know what you're up to, and it's very clear you're going to be the next superintendent. I came into this show and I told you about that interaction and told you, mark my words, within a year, Ralph's going to be superintendent, and here we are. Now, I'm not saying that that's necessarily a bad thing, by the way, because as I said, the other applicants, horrible, the other applicants. They're left-wing lunatics, and by the way, all of them were white. Now, don't tell me, oh, but they had a Spanish last name, that means they're not white. They're still white. I had this conversation with political people during the Dan Coe run for Congress a couple of years ago. Dan Coe's Lebanese, but he's the whitest white man you'll ever see. If he walks into a room, he's white. And he was walking around talking about he was a person of color in all of his speeches. And I finally went over to him one day and go, how are you a person of color? If you and I walk into a room, you're whiter than me. Someone who doesn't know either one of us aren't going to look at you and go, oh, there's a person of color. Anyways, these other three applicants were as white could be. Compared to Ralph Carrero, I wish I could show you the picture, a very dark-skinned Dominican man. And yet the left in Lawrence, who hate Brian DePina, were opposing him because he was friends with Brian DePina. And quite frankly, seems a little hypocritical and racist to me, if you ask me. I want to talk more about Ralph Carrero in another show. I might even want to try and get him on the show, because we did serve on the Lawrence School Committee, and boy, did he make a bunch of blunders when he was there. But we're not the product of our past, folks. We're a product of how much we've grown from our past. And I'd really like to have him on here and talk to him about his philosophy on education and see, what he thinks about the schools now. All right, we have 6 minutes left, and I really want to get to this Methuen PD. Our editorial in this edition of the Valley Patriot. Thank you for this, by the way, honey. Oh, man, this Medication's kicking my ass. Our editorial, the Methuen Police Department. Sergeant DeJesus, I know this has been covered by some of the Boston stations. I'm just getting to it now. I got a copy of the lawsuit. It's a 26-page lawsuit. Sergeant DeJesus of the Methuen Police Department has filed a unspecified damages lawsuit, which means if he wins, it's going to be millions. That's what it means. And I read every word of this 26-page lawsuit in total disbelief. It reads, here's what it reads like. It reads like a young person who has seen a lot of movies about what racism was in the 60s and 70s and projecting it onto a bunch of people today. That's what it reads like. But the accusations within this are very serious. I find it really hard to believe a lot of it, but it's very obvious that some of it is very true. Superior officers using the N-word, superior officers using the S-word for Latinos, comments being made like, if they're Latino, don't give them the Narcan, they don't deserve it, or we should take our time getting to them, Lawrence should burn down, things like that. But those are comments. And, you know, I just because I'm a thinking person who thinks for myself, and I'm from a different generation, comments are comments, sticks and stones. I've started a lot of jobs and had people make a lot of really rough comments about me because I'm the new guy. Maybe they're just ribbing on me. Maybe they're just kidding and they don't realize I'm sensitive about a topic. But comments are comments. You shouldn't be using the N-word. You shouldn't be using the S-word. But they're words. They don't hurt. Some of the stuff that's in the lawsuit, however, is about him being retaliated against for complaining about it. And in the year 2024, or I guess some of this stuff happened prior to that, in the last 5 years. You can't have superior officers in a police department making racist comments at roll call. You can't have them retaliating against a police officer for complaining about it. And there's two things in this lawsuit that we mentioned in our editorial because I think they're very, very important. One of them is that he sought the help of a member of the Perry administration, and he also sought the help of a Methuen city councilor. And he doesn't name the councilor. And he should have named the counselor. So I'm going to be following this very carefully to find out who this counselor is. He says in his lawsuit that he went to a Methuen city councilor, explained to them the problems that he was having, how they were changing his shift on him, they weren't giving him extra details because he was complaining about the racism within the department. And that the city council that he went to was not only not interested in helping him root out racism in a police department, but that they tried to enlist him to set up Joe Solomon because they wanted Joe Solomon to get fired at the time. So not only was this city councilor, and we know that there were others too, but he only mentions that there's one. Not only did this city councilor in Methuen not help Sergeant DeJesus when he reached out for help, as the only Latino at the Methuen Police Department, that he was being targeted because of his race, but they wanted to use him to get dirt on Joe Solomon. And when he said to them he wasn't interested in being their patsy, he wasn't interested in doing that, they never returned his calls again. They had no interest as a city councilor to root out racism in a police department. To me, that's huge. Because when you go to your boss and your boss doesn't help you with a problem like that, so you go over your boss's head to an elected official, you know, the ones that knock on your door and tell you that they care about the poor and the downtrodden, that they're going to be there for the people who have no voice in the community. And when you go to that guy, whichever city councilor it was, I actually have a really good handle on who it is, but I don't even want to hint it because I don't want to be wrong. I want to make sure I know for sure when I say the name. But I'm pretty sure I know who it is. But when you go to a city councilor and you say, I'm a police officer, I serve the taxpayers of Methuen, and I'm being targeted because of my race, and my supervisor is making comments like, let Lawrence burn. Black lives don't matter. The N-word, the S-word. Can you help me? You're a city councilor. Can you do something about the culture of racism within the department? And they say, no, but we'd really like your help to set up Joe Solomon. Wow. Wow. And by the way, that's in writing in a lawsuit. How does that help Joe Solomon's situation, where Joe Solomon has been claiming since day one that they've been setting him up? The other thing that he said within this lawsuit is that he was told while it was going on when Joe Solomon was the chief that this all rots from the head down, that it was all because Joe Solomon was a big racist, and don't worry, when Joe Solomon is gone, it's going to get better. And then in the next paragraph, he states, and when Joe Solomon left, it got worse. When the new chief came on board, it got worse. Wow. Now, again, this is all allegations. And when you read through it, it really seems hard to believe all of this is true. I'm having a hard time believing all of it is true, quite frankly. But boy, you know for sure some of it's true, especially when we know some of the other things that have gone on in the Methuen PD over the last 5 to 10 years. So the Valley Patriot and myself personally, I'm going to be following this very closely. And I've put in some calls to Sergeant DeJesus' attorney to see if maybe they'll talk with me either on or off the record so that we can find out who some of these people are. Here's my fear, and here's why we wrote an editorial about it. My fear is that now that there's been a lot of publicity on this, the politicians in Methuen are going to want to settle it out of court. They're going to want to write a multi-million-dollar check to Sergeant DeJesus to make this go away. And here's why that's bad. Because that means the Perry administration that turned a blind eye to all of this from the beginning, that allowed racism to go on and be covered up in the Methuen Police Department, are never going to pay a price for what they did. The names of the officers that used the N-word if that happened, the names of the officers that said not to Narcan Latinos, to let them die, we're never going to find out who those people are. And you know what else that means? They're going to be able to keep doing it. That means you, the taxpayers, are going to write a check to Sergeant DeJesus. But the people who did this are never going to pay a price. And that's why I want to follow this. Before it gets settled, I want the names. I want someone to leak me the names of who was involved in this so we can get that out, so that if they do settle it out of court, at least the perpetrators are going to pay a price. And you know me, I love cops. I hate these kind of stories. I hate any kind of story that makes an entire department look bad. But boy, you can't look any worse than this lawsuit. 26 pages of every single sentence on every page was more outrageous than the last. I mean, it really read like Archie Bunker was running the whole show. I couldn't believe what I was reading. Especially when it said, when Joe Solomon left, it got worse. That's the part that I was like, wow. All right, I guess, we didn't thank our sponsors at the beginning of the show. You can tell I've been off my game a little bit. So let's roll up, Mel, and I'll thank our sponsors. Our sponsors are the people that keep us on the air, and we appreciate them. And I actually got 2 sponsors reached out to me last week and said, Tom, I'm watching a best of. I just hope that you're feeling okay. I know that this is 2 weeks in a row you weren't here, and I hope you're feeling okay. And I said, listen, I feel really bad because you sponsor the show, and you sponsor the show because you want original content every week, and I feel like I'm gypping my advertisers. And both of them said to me when I said that, Tom, we just want you to get better. You're still mentioning our show. It's a rerun. You still have the things at the front. We still love you. We want to up our advertisements. So 2 of our advertisers whose contracts run out this month have both signed up for another year, so we want to thank them. So Century 21, you can roll up, Mel. Century 21, McLennan Real Estate. I guess Matt is having a fundraiser of his own. Find him on Facebook. I should have researched that a little bit so I could promote it, but I'll do it next week. The Zany Pesh Law Office, Marson & Son Construction, EIS, Investigation and Gun Training, whom I've now brought onto my legal team. I've now brought them on board. They're now working for me. Borelli's and Par 28, as well as Time Out Sports Bar. It's a free shout-out to Time Out Sports Bar in Haverhill. Tomo and Shake and Seafood, Clear Path for Veterans New England, AFC Urgent Care, Pleasant Valley Landscaping Contractors, a free shout-out to 4-Star Lighting, and JG's Ice Cream. Don't forget Field of Honor in North Andover. You can sponsor a flag for $30. You can purchase a flag for $50 and put the name of a hero. It could be a fallen police officer, a fallen firefighter, a veteran, someone who's lost their lives, someone who's still around that you just want to appreciate them and honor them while they're still here. Go to valleypatriot.com, click on the story at the top, or go to the Lawrence Exchange Club website. Sounds like Melvin Taylor says we got to go home. So go home already.
Opinions expressed by the hosts, guests, or callers of this program do not necessarily reflect the opinions of the Studio 21 Podcast Cafe, the United Podcast Network, its partners, or affiliates.